spin it around again. I didn't get the full card. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hello, my name is Diana, or Diana, Diana. And today what I will be talking to you about is the need for deaf education teachers and interpreters. Did y'all know that over 5% of the world is deaf? And there's a need for deaf education teachers and interpreters. And over 466 million people are deaf. I have done sign language for 2 years, and I've gotten information from websites and deaf education books, and some information from my teacher who taught me sign language. Not many people understand the need for sign language, deaf education teachers and interpreters. So that's what I'm going to be talking to you about today. And I'm going to talk to you about how they live, how they talk and communicate, and how I want to teach deaf education, and I want to sort of do interpreting. There's many challenges that many people don't know that deaf people undergo all the time. There is a lot of communication barriers for deaf people. They have to have an interpreter with them all the time because they're deaf and they can't hear anything. So whenever there's not many interpreters and there's somebody that they want to talk to that can hear but they don't know sign language, it causes a lot of barriers and makes it very hard for communication. And this sets up many barriers for deaf people and non-deaf people alike. And that makes it really difficult communicating between both of them. And they need an interpreter. And so both parties have to have an interpreter to be able to communicate between each other. And they need interpreters for schools too, to be able to understand what the teacher is talking about if they're not in deaf schools. And they undergo a lot of difficulty living. They have difficulty in different living styles. They live differently than we do. So they have a harder time listening to things, like how we hear doorbells and we hear alarms on our phones, and we can hear basically everything, but it's different for deaf people. They have to have vibrations on them. They have to be able to feel vibrations and basses. That's why whenever they have music on, they have the bass so loud, so that they can feel the vibrations and know what song they're listening to and what it is. And the schools that they go to, whenever they go to school, they have to have different accommodations to be able to go to school. Like what I talked about earlier, they have to have like specific needs. They have to be able to have an interpreter right there interpreting everything. They have to have different requirements that most of us take for granted. Deaf education teachers help fill that gap. They help teach deaf people how to communicate without an interpreter. Sometimes they have to learn how to speak because they can't hear themselves. So that's a lot of what deaf education teachers and interpreters do. And that's what I want to do whenever I want to graduate high school. I want to be able to teach deaf children and be able to sign to them and teach them how to speak correctly. And I'd love to teach deaf education because it would just be amazing being able to just be able to talk to them and help them grow with their sign language. There's a lot of benefits to sign language for deaf people. And what they do, and the benefits are that they help with growth for them. They help grow them into the people who they'll become, and they'll help them being able to speak correctly and with everything, really. And there's a real need for interpreters and deaf education teachers because, like I said earlier, there's 5% of the world that's deaf, but not many people know this. So it's very important. It's important for people to understand the need. So the need for interpreters is growing daily, and there's a lot of different barriers that set up this. There's a lot of barriers, and they live differently than we do, and not many people understand this. And there's a benefit, for deaf education teachers and interpreters. Thank you for paying attention, and I hope you'll have a great day.